iOS 26.3 update brings powerful AirPods-like pairing. iOS 26.3 update introduces AirPods-like proximity pairing for third-party Bluetooth accessories, making setup faster and simpler. Apple's iOS 26.3 update may quietly go down as one of the most important turning points in the company's modern history, not because it introduces flashy visual redesigns or headline-grabbing new apps, but because it fundamentally challenges Apple's long-standing walled garden philosophy and signals a calculated shift toward interoperability that many users have wanted for years. As this update expands AirPods-like proximity pairing and notification forwarding to third-party accessories, dramatically changing how iPhones and iPads interact with non-Apple devices. And while Apple presents iOS 26.3 as a compliance-driven update aligned with the European Union's Digital Markets Act, the deeper implications stretch far beyond regulatory checkboxes, hinting at a future where Apple devices become more flexible, adaptable, and less dependent on Apple-only hardware. Starting with one of the most noticeable upgrades of all, AirPods-like pairing for non-Apple Bluetooth accessories. A feature that until now has been one of Apple's strongest ecosystem advantages, because for years Apple users have enjoyed the near magical simplicity of pairing AirPods by simply opening the case near an iPhone, while users of third-party earbuds were forced through outdated Bluetooth menus, manual discoverability steps, and inconsistent connection behavior. But with iOS 26.3, that experience is finally beginning to change, as compatible third-party earbuds, headphones, and Bluetooth accessories can now trigger a one-tap proximity pairing prompt simply by being brought near an iPhone or iPad, removing friction, saving time, and making non-Apple accessories feel far more native to the iOS experience. And although early availability is limited to the European Union due to regulatory requirements, this shift alone represents a massive philosophical change for Apple, because it removes one of the biggest everyday advantages of staying locked into Apple's accessory ecosystem, allowing brands like Sony, Bose, JBL, and others to offer a setup experience that feels just as seamless as Apple's own products. And for ordinary users, this translates into faster setup, less frustration, and more freedom to choose accessories based on quality and value rather than ecosystem pressure. While the update doesn't stop at pairing, as iOS 26.3 also expands notification forwarding to non-Apple wearables, addressing another long-standing limitation of iPhones compared to Android devices. Since until now, Apple Watch users enjoy deep notification integration, while owners of Garmin, Samsung, or other smartwatches face restricted or inconsistent notification support. But with the new update, Apple introduces a dedicated notification forwarding option that allows users to route iPhone notifications to a connected third-party wearable, selecting which apps can send alerts and preventing duplication by temporarily disabling Apple Watch notifications when forwarding is active, a move that dramatically improves smartwatch compatibility and makes non-Apple wearables far more viable as primary companions to the iPhone, giving users genuine choice for the first time without sacrificing core functionality. And while this feature too is initially limited to the EU, it sends a powerful message to both users and developers that Apple is willing, at least under certain conditions, to loosen its grip on exclusive system features. And the driving force behind all of this is the European Union's Digital Markets Act, a sweeping regulation designed to curb the power of dominant tech platforms by enforcing fair competition and interoperability, requiring companies like Apple to grant third-party developers and hardware makers access to system-level capabilities previously reserved for first-party products. And in response, Apple has implemented proximity pairing and notification access in a way that technically complies with the law while still maintaining tight control over security, performance, and user experience, a balance that Apple has publicly argued is difficult to strike. Yet the early implementation of iOS 26.3 suggests the company is finding ways to open up without fully abandoning its core principles. And beyond pairing and notifications, iOS 26.3 also introduces quieter but equally telling connectivity enhancements, including easier Android migration tools that simplify transferring photos, messages, apps, and accounts wirelessly, signaling a subtle but meaningful softening of Apple's historically rigid ecosystem boundaries, as well as early signs of improved device switching frameworks that can make cross-platform transitions less painful in future. And while Apple hasn't marketed these features aggressively, Their presence reinforces a broader theme of iOS 26.3 as an update focused on flexibility rather than lock-in, and as the public beta progresses, Apple has begun opening new frameworks for third-party developers and hardware manufacturers, allowing them to integrate more deeply with iOS devices, though full documentation and SDK support are still evolving, meaning not all accessories will benefit immediately at launch, but the groundwork is clearly being laid, and looking ahead, Apple is expected to release iOS 26.3 publicly in early 2026, likely in late January, bringing these features to supported iPhones and iPads wherever regulations allow. And while many users outside the EU may initially feel excluded, history suggests that once Apple implements features at the system level, global expansion often follows if user demand and ecosystem pressure are strong enough, making iOS 26.3 less an isolated regulatory response and more of a test case for how open Apple is willing to become. And when you zoom out and examine the bigger picture, this update may not introduce dozens of flashy features, but its impact on the Apple ecosystem could be profound, as it reduces dependency on Apple-only accessories, expands consumer choice, and gives developers and hardware makers new incentives to build better products for iOS users. And for consumers, this means greater freedom